Welcome to this short video on personal finance. We're going to focus on interest and interest rates. They are basic key concepts that are required for an understanding of how money works. And hopefully this video will pique your interest in interest rates and you'll want to learn more. Let's start with banks. Banks accept deposits from customers. But then they turn around and take that money and they loan it to other customers. For example, a mortgage. A bank will make a profit that way. They are also legally required to hold a stash called reserves. So anytime you want to get your money out, it might be in a mortgage with somebody, but you can always get it out because they keep a certain amount of reserves. A bank is a safe way to keep your money, and they can work as a hedge against inflation. If you want to know more about inflation, I can make a quick video for you. Just let me know. When you deposit money into a savings account, you are effectively loaning the money to the bank. It's a privilege for them to have your money, and in turn, they will pay you something for that. That's called interest. The money will pay you interest in return for letting them use your money. The interest is calculated as a percentage of how much money you have in the bank at a certain time. In this case, let's take an example here. Let's say you deposited $1,000 into the bank and the interest rate for the year is 12%. You would get $120 at the end of the year. But in fact, they don't pay once a year. They generally pay 12 times a year, and that term is period. So period is the term for how often they pay the interest. If they pay the interest each month, they pay in 12 periods. In our example of $1,000 deposited, if the interest rate is 12% and there are 12 periods, 12 payments made per year, 12 divided by 12 is 1, each payment would be 1%. So that would mean $10 per month. However, interest is actually calculated on the basis of how much money, how much principal you have at the time of payment. That's compound interest. Compound interest is beautiful. Compound interest is interest paid on interest. So this is your money doing work for you without you doing anything. Let's go back to our example, make it a little more elaborate. We start with $1,000. Interest rate is 12% for the year. There are 12 periods, 12 months. It's 1% per period. The first month on $1,000, 1% is $10. That $10 gets put back into your account. Now you're collecting interest against $1,010. Therefore, 1% is $10.10. That money gets put back in the bank. Now you're at $1,020. Your interest is higher, so on and so forth. So all this interest that you're collecting gains interest on top of it. Interest on top of interest, that is the concept of compound interest. After 7 years, just putting the money in the bank, doing nothing at 12% return, you will appreciate by $1,182. Your bank account will read $2,182 after 7 years. I mentioned that 12% was pretty high. That's definitely high. Savings accounts and banks really carry no risk. Therefore, there's really not a high return. It's really just a place to keep your money, and as I mentioned, a hedge against inflation. If you want to turn around and invest to make more money, there are lots of securities, lots of ways to do it. If you want a video on the basics of investing, I can do that as well pretty easily. Just let me know. To give you an example of some of the returns, the stock market as a whole, on average, so those are all the companies that trade on the stock market, on average gains 7 to 10% per year. Pretty good. After a while, your money can really add up. Again, there are good stocks and bad stocks, good years and bad years, but as a whole, the stock market is a pretty good investment and has returned between 7 and 10% a year on average increase. One thing to mention about this thing we just talked about, if you add money to the principal, $50 a month, it's really going to add up, and all that money gets compound interest too. Bottom line is compound interest make your money work for you. On the flip side, there's debt. So there's two kinds of debt. These are real terms, good debt and bad debt. Good debt is money you borrow that will increase your value. An example would be you take money out to pay for a Spanish class. Learning Spanish makes you more valuable in the workplace and could increase your salary potential. Another example of good debt is a mortgage when you buy a house. Real estate tends to be a very good investment over time and therefore is considered good. A bad debt is a luxury item. A car. A car doesn't increase in value over time. A car decreases in value. If you take a loan out for a car, that's considered bad debt, and it's kind of a ding on your credit record. Another type of bad debt, in fact, maybe the worst bad debt, is credit card debt. Credit card debt is when you have to borrow money because you are living over your means. You need more money or you spend more money than you have. You have to pay back credit cards on a monthly basis for that money that is lent. You pay the money back, but you also have to pay interest, very similar to what we talked about on top. On top, you were the one loaning the money and the bank was paying you interest. This is the flip. The credit card company is loaning you the money and you have to pay them back with interest. Let's see how painful that can be. Let's say you go on a trip to Hawaii and it costs you $6,000. You don't have $6,000, so you take it out on a credit card. Credit cards typically have very high interest rates, not uncommon to see them around 20%. Let's say there are 12 periods, 12 months that they calculate and calculate the interest. That would mean 20 divided by 12 is 1.67% interest rate per period. You choose to pay $200 a month against that $6,000 balance. First thing that'll happen is interest is calculated. So 1.67 times your current balance is $100. So $100 of your $200 goes right to interest, and then the balance, 200 minus 100, goes towards paying down the principal. We go back here. Now our principal's down to $5,900 because you just knocked down the principal by $100. Same thing in the subsequent months. You can see you're paying $200 a month. Your interest is calculated, and then you subtract your interest from your monthly payment, and that knocks down the principal. In this scenario, it would take you 42 months, almost 4 years, to get to a zero balance, and this also assumes you don't use the credit card for anything else. But what's really painful is you borrowed $6,000 to go to Hawaii, and you paid $2,400 for that privilege. So you paid $8,400 for your $6,000 trip to Hawaii. Imagine if you hadn't taken that trip, or maybe you saved up the $6,000 and didn't have to take out a loan. Imagine what you could have done with that $2,400 based on the concept of compound interest that we talked about at the beginning of this recording. You could have really turned the $2,400 into something. What that means is, in the end, anytime you're going to make a choice on whether to buy something or not, you should consider what it would mean if you didn't buy it and instead you had invested the money. That term is called opportunity cost. You can look it up. It's a very important concept. What we're really referring to here is budgeting, knowing how to live within your means. If you'd like to see a video about how to set up a budget and what budgets mean, let me know. I'm willing to do it. Also willing to explain the mystery of mortgages if you want. Just let me know. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and good luck.